Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back, way back, into a world shrouded in cigarette smoke and suspicion, where shadows held more secrets than light, and trust was a luxury you simply couldn't afford. Imagine for a moment, if you will, not your comfy bed or your glowing screen, but a cramped, musty safe house in 1970s East Berlin, the rain drumming a mournful rhythm on the window pane, your hand instinctively reaching for the worn pistol tucked beneath your pillow. The air is thick with the scent of old paper and stale coffee, and every creak of the floorboards outside sends a jolt of ice through your veins. This isn't some slick Hollywood blockbuster with car chases and witty one-liners. This is the Cold War, raw and unforgiving. And tonight, we're going to explore why, despite your impressive binge-watching skills and your knack for solving escape rooms, you probably wouldn't survive a single day as a spy in that era. It's a harsh truth, but sometimes the truth is far stranger and deadlier than fiction. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fun to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake, not to the gentle chirping of your phone alarm, but to the suffocating silence of a cheap, anonymous apartment. There's no sunrise here, just the perpetually overcast sky of a city behind the Iron Curtain. Your first thought isn't about coffee or your morning commute. It's about whether you were followed last night, if that subtle flicker in the street lamp meant something, or if the woman selling flowers outside the market knew more than she let on. This isn't a game of elaborate cosplay, you realize, pulling on a shirt that's intentionally bland, its fabric coarse against your skin. You can forget your Instagram aesthetic. Here, anonymity is your only shield, your only true friend. Every step outside is a calculated risk, every glance a potential threat. You're not James Bond, coolly disarming bombs with a wink. You're a walking, breathing secret, burdened by the weight of your own existence. The Cold War wasn't just a political standoff. It was an invisible war fought by individuals like you, often alone, in the shadows of divided cities. Your mission today, you vaguely remember from the hastily memorized briefing, involves observing a specific building, perhaps making a dead drop, or simply identifying a contact. There's no GPS on your non-existent smartphone, no instant access to satellite imagery. You rely on hand-drawn maps, cryptic directions, and your own finely tuned sense of observation, which you've had to develop in a hurry. You have to notice the subtle differences. A window ajar where it should be closed, a piece of litter that wasn't there before, the faint scent of jasmine in a season when it shouldn't bloom. And for those who think their memory is good because they can recall every meme from last week, try memorizing street grids, faces, and code words under duress, all while trying not to look suspicious. It's like trying to remember your Wi-Fi password after a particularly rough night out. Except the consequences are significantly worse than just not being able to stream Netflix. The pressure is relentless. Every face in the crowd could be a counterintelligence agent, every car a surveillance team. You learn to walk with a deliberate slowness, to blend, to disappear into the mundane. You pass a bakery, and the smell of fresh bread is agonizing, a reminder of a normal life you no longer possess. You can't stop for a pastry. You can't even pause to tie your shoe without wondering if it's a setup. This constant hypervigilance would drain even the most dedicated of us. Imagine living every moment as if you're being watched by 1,000 invisible eyes, trying to spot the one pair that actually belongs to someone who wants to end your operation, or worse, your life. Mainstream historical fact: during the Cold War, both the CIA and KGB employed thousands of agents and informants, operating extensive networks across the globe, often using elaborate cover identities and complex communication methods to gather intelligence and influence political outcomes. This wasn't a game played by a handful of eccentrics. It was a massive, government-funded, high-stakes enterprise. Your individual contribution, while potentially critical, was a tiny cog in an enormous, perpetually grinding machine. And speaking of grinding, your stomach growls. You haven't had a proper meal in days, just some tasteless, pre-packaged rations that probably taste like cardboard mixed with the lingering regret of poor life choices. The glamorous spy life, right? A quirky or fringe tidbit. Did you know that the CIA once investigated using trained cats, outfitted with microphones and transmitters, for espionage purposes in the 1960s? The project, known as Acoustic Kitty, was reportedly abandoned after the first test subject was tragically hit by a taxi. So, while you're meticulously checking for wiretaps in your shoelace, the folks back home were apparently busy trying to turn Fluffy into an intelligence asset. It really makes you wonder what other bizarre ideas they cooked up in those clandestine labs. You can almost picture the recruitment poster. Wanted, feline operatives. Must be stealthy, independent, and not afraid of traffic. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of deep cover agents, living for years or even decades under false identities, ultimately yielded more actionable intelligence than it cost in terms of human resources and the psychological toll on the agents themselves. Some argue that the sheer volume of data, even if often unreliable, was invaluable, while others contend that the operational risks and human cost outweighed the benefits. For you, trudging down a rain-slicked street, that academic debate feels utterly irrelevant. All you know is that the identity you've meticulously built, the one you're living right now, feels less like a shield and more like a second skin that's perpetually on fire. You can't shake it off, you can't relax from it. It's you for now, and it's exhausting. You try to remember your real name, your real hometown, just to ground yourself, but the memories feel like distant, faded photographs. This isn't a Netflix series where you can pause for a snack break. You're living it, breath by agonizing breath. And honestly, the biggest hack you'd discover is that a decent cup of coffee is surprisingly hard to come by in a world designed to be as unglamorous as possible. The morning after your initial unsettling foray into the world of Cold War espionage, your alarm isn't a gentle tune but the sharp rap of a handler's knuckles on your safe house door. There's no time for a leisurely stretch or a quick check of your social media feed. Instead, you're immediately thrust into the next phase training. And let me tell you, this isn't some weekend self-improvement workshop. Forget online courses or quick certification programs. This is a brutal, all-consuming process designed not to build you up, but to tear down every vestige of your former self and rebuild you into a compliant, unbreakable tool. You arrive at a nondescript facility, probably somewhere cold and isolated, the kind of place where even the trees look like they're trying to keep a secret. Your physical conditioning begins immediately, and it's not about achieving a six-pack for beach season. You're pushed to the brink of exhaustion, day after day, through obstacle courses that would make a Spartan race look like a leisurely stroll in the park. Imagine running miles with heavy packs, navigating treacherous terrain in the dead of night, and performing calisthenics until your muscles scream in protest. You learn hand-to-hand combat, not the flashy, choreographed moves you see in movies, but brutal, efficient techniques designed to incapacitate or kill quickly. There's no bowing, no honor, just survival. They train you to endure pain, to ignore the burning in your lungs, the aching in your joints, until your body becomes a weapon, not just a vessel. And forget your carefully curated diet. You eat whatever bland, high-protein slop they put in front of you, because fuel is fuel, and there's no room for preference when you're training for survival. But the physical grueling is only half of it. The psychological conditioning is arguably more insidious, more damaging. They start by stripping away your identity. Your name, your past, your personal quirks, they are all systematically dismantled. You undergo endless interrogations, not by an enemy, but by your own trainers, who play devil's advocate, pushing your emotional buttons, trying to break your resolve. They want to see how you react under pressure, how well you can maintain a cover story when your every instinct screams to tell the truth. You're subjected to sleep deprivation, isolation, and sensory overload, all designed to disorient you, to make you question your own perceptions. It's like a perpetually bad dream, where you're always on the verge of falling, but never quite hit the ground. You might find yourself confessing to imaginary crimes, just to make the relentless questioning stop, only to be told you're weak, that you failed the test. It's a mind game designed to teach you not to trust anyone, not even yourself. You learn to compartmentalize your emotions, to bury fear, anger, and even joy deep inside, because any outward display of feeling is a weakness that can be exploited. Think of it like trying to perfectly organize your computer desktop, but instead of files, you're sorting traumatic experiences and suppressing primal urges. And every now and then, you forget where you put something important, and it rears its ugly head at the worst possible moment. This constant emotional suppression would turn you into a robot, or at least a very good impression of one. Mainstream historical fact: specialized spy training facilities existed on both sides of the Cold War, such as the KGB's Line X, responsible for scientific and technological intelligence, and the CIA's Farm, Camp Peary, Virginia. These facilities were notorious for their intense and psychologically demanding programs, designed to cultivate agents capable of operating under extreme stress and isolation for extended periods. They literally built spies from the ground up, or rather, from the ground down. A quirky or fringe tidbit: during the early days of Cold War spy training, some recruits were reportedly taught how to pick locks using common household items like hairpins or paper clips, a skill that sounds straight out of a children's spy kit, but was actually a highly practical necessity. Imagine spending hours practicing opening various locks, not because you're locked out of your house, but because your life might depend on silently gaining entry to a hostile facility. And if you've ever fumbled with a tricky knot, you'd probably spend the entire operation cursing your inability to master simple dexterity, let alone complex lockpicking. Historians still argue whether the extreme psychological conditioning employed by intelligence agencies was effective in creating more resilient agents, or if it primarily led to increased rates of burnout, mental health issues, and, in some cases, defection. Some suggest it hardened agents against enemy tactics, while others contend it simply broke them down, making them more vulnerable in the long run. As you lie awake on a narrow cot, listening to the drip of a leaky faucet, your muscles screaming and your mind a jumbled mess of half-forgotten identities, you wouldn't be debating the effectiveness. You'd be praying for a moment of peace, a sliver of silence in the relentless cacophony of your own internal struggle. You might even find yourself wishing you were back in your old cubicle, dealing with endless spreadsheets, because at least then your biggest worry was a looming deadline, not a looming breakdown. This isn't just about learning skills. It's about unlearning humanity, and it's exhausting beyond anything you could possibly imagine. After the brutal psychological and physical crucible of training, you emerge not quite human, but a meticulously sculpted instrument of intelligence. Now comes the real transformation, the most dangerous act of all: becoming someone else. This isn't just about changing your name on a piece of paper. It's about inhabiting a new life, a new history, a new personality, so completely that even you sometimes forget who you really are. This is where the artistry of espionage truly begins, and where your everyday habits, your casual quirks, become fatal flaws. Imagine building an entire backstory from scratch. You're given a new name, a new birth date, a new family history, none of it real, all of it meticulously crafted. You memorize trivial details: the name of your fictional hometown's obscure football team, the type of tea your grandmother preferred, the street where your childhood friend lived. Every detail, no matter how small, is a potential tripwire. Forget one crucial piece of information, or hesitate when asked about your fabricated past, and the entire edifice of your new identity crumbles. It's like trying to perfectly remember every detail of a dream you had last week. Except a misstep means being unmasked by a suspicious border guard or a sharp-eyed counterintelligence officer. And no, you can't just Google it. This process involves more than just rote memorization. You have to embody the persona. If your new identity is a humble factory worker, you can't carry yourself with the confident stride of a tech executive. If you're supposed to be a quiet librarian, you can't suddenly become gregarious and outgoing. You learn to speak with a different accent, to adopt different mannerisms, even to change your gait. Your natural reactions, your unconscious habits are now liabilities. Do you habitually touch your nose when you're nervous? Do you tap your foot when you're thinking? These are tells, unconscious signals that trained observers can pick up on, and they will expose you. It's like being an actor, but the stage is the entire world, and the consequences of a bad performance are permanent. And there are no second takes, no retakes, only silent judgment and swift action. You practice until the new identity feels more real than your own. You learn to answer to your new name without a moment's hesitation, to recount your fabricated life story with conviction and appropriate emotional responses. It's a constant performance, every waking moment, every interaction. You can't just turn it off when you're alone. The fear of slipping up, of reverting to your true self, means the mask never truly comes off. Think about how easy it is to accidentally use your pet's nickname for your significant other. Now imagine that slip-up being the difference between life and death. Mainstream historical fact. One of the most famous examples of deep cover identity creation was that of the illegals employed by the KGB, who lived for years or even decades in foreign countries under meticulously fabricated identities, often speaking perfect local languages and having no official ties to their home country. Their entire lives were a lie, from birth certificates to employment records. The very idea of someone living this complete fiction for their entire adult life is staggering and almost impossible for a normal person to comprehend. A quirky or fringe tidbit. Some spy agencies during the Cold War would include small, seemingly irrelevant flaws or inconsistencies in their agents' cover stories, believing that a perfectly pristine background was often more suspicious than one with minor, explainable quirks. For example, your fabricated resume might include a brief period of unemployment due to a misunderstanding with a previous employer, or a slight, almost imperceptible limp you'd have to remember to effect. It's like adding a slightly crooked frame to an otherwise perfect painting, just to make it seem more real. So you'd not only have to remember your fictional past, but also your fictional imperfections. Historians still argue whether the psychological burden of maintaining a false identity for extended periods contributed to a higher rate of operational failures, or whether it merely added another layer of resilience. Some scholars contend that the constant deception fostered an alienation that made agents less effective in the long run, while others maintain that it was a necessary and ultimately successful tactic. For you, living this double life, there's no academic debate. There's just the constant hum of anxiety, the fear of making one tiny mistake, of one fleeting moment of genuine emotion that betrays the elaborate facade you've constructed. You might even find yourself developing a nervous twitch you never had before, just to add another layer of authenticity to your new, miserable existence. And no, there's no app for that. You've mastered the art of becoming someone else, a chameleon blending seamlessly into the drab landscape of Cold War intrigue. Now comes the equally perilous task of communicating without being heard, seen, or suspected. Forget instant messages or video calls. In this world, covert communication isn't a convenience. It's a deadly ballet performed in the shadows, where every whispered word, every folded newspaper, could be a secret message, and every secret message could lead to your unraveling. Your first lesson in covert communication involves dead drops. Imagine this. You're walking through a park, ostensibly enjoying a quiet afternoon, when you casually slip a microdot-laden coin under a loose brick in a specific wall. Or maybe you're tying your shoelace by a particular lamppost, leaving a package in a hollowed-out tree stump. This isn't like leaving a note for your roommate on the fridge. This requires precision, timing, and an uncanny awareness of your surroundings. You need to verify the drop site is clean, no surveillance, no unexpected passersby, and make the exchange without drawing even a fleeting glance. It's an agonizing few seconds, a miniature heart attack with every deposit or retrieval. And if you've ever dropped your phone down a sewer grate, imagine the sheer terror of dropping classified intelligence where anyone could find it, or worse, where it's specifically meant to be found by the wrong people. Then there are microdots, a true marvel of Cold War espionage, and a testament to how far agencies would go to shrink information. Picture an entire page of classified documents reduced to the size of a period at the end of this sentence, often photographed onto a tiny piece of film and then glued onto a seemingly innocuous object. A stamp, a button, even a grain of rice. You'd receive an ordinary letter, perhaps from a long-lost relative, and know to carefully peel back a certain corner, or dissolve a specific ink mark to reveal the hidden. The challenge wasn't just hiding the information, but retrieving it without damaging it, and then having the specialized equipment to enlarge it. It's like trying to read the fine print on a medication bottle after you've already had too much coffee. But if you fail, you might just swallow state secrets. Coded messages are another cornerstone of your daily life. Forget simple substitution ciphers you learned in elementary school. These are complex, one-time pads, intricate encryption methods that, theoretically, are unbreakable if used correctly. You'd carry a small, seemingly random book of numbers or letters, and for each message, you'd use a unique page, never to be used again. The sheer discipline required to manage these pads, to encrypt and decrypt messages accurately under pressure, is immense. One misplaced number, one forgotten page, and the entire message becomes gibberish or worse, reveals a pattern that counterintelligence can exploit. It's like trying to follow a recipe with half the ingredients missing and no clear instructions, all while knowing your life depends on the meal being perfect. Mainstream historical fact: the dead drop technique was a staple of Cold War espionage. One particularly ingenious method involved brush passes, where two agents would briefly pass each other in a crowd, one subtly transferring an item to the other, often in a hollowed-out coin, umbrella, or even a newspaper. This required incredible dexterity and coordination, as well as a bustling environment to conceal the exchange. A quirky or fringe tidbit: the Soviets famously developed and used hollowed-out coins as dead drop containers. These coins would be meticulously cut open, cleaned out, and then sealed back together, often containing microdots or tiny pieces of film. Imagine receiving pocket change and realizing one of the coins is just a tiny bit lighter, a tiny bit off, a tiny bit of a secret waiting to be discovered. It's like finding a secret compartment in your grandmother's antique jewelry box, but instead of family heirlooms, it contains blueprints for a new missile. Historians still argue whether the reliance on manual, often low-tech, covert communication methods like dead drops and microdots, rather than more advanced electronic means, truly enhanced security, or if it simply made operations more cumbersome and prone to human error. Some argue the physical methods were harder to intercept without direct capture, while others believe they offered too many points of vulnerability. For you, meticulously hiding a tiny capsule of film under a park bench, the debate feels trivial. All you know is the cold sweat trickling down your back, the pounding in your chest, and the desperate hope that no one, absolutely no one, saw that flicker of movement in your peripheral vision. You're not worried about Wi-Fi signals. You're worried about the weight of a single, tiny, incredibly dangerous coin. You probably spend the rest of the day with your hand in your pocket, unconsciously checking for loose change, just to be sure. You've successfully navigated the treacherous waters of covert communication, or at least you hope you have. Now, the omnipresent reality of the Cold War spy's existence truly settles in surveillance. You are always watching, but more importantly, you are always being watched. This isn't a fleeting thought or a paranoid delusion. It's a tangible, suffocating shroud that wraps around your every move. Every street corner, every cafe, every anonymous face in the crowd becomes a potential threat, and your ability to spot your tail before they spot you is the difference between freedom and capture. Imagine waking up each morning with a low hum of anxiety in your stomach. Before you even step out the door, you're checking. You scan the windows opposite your safe house. Is that curtain slightly ajar? Is that light on at an odd hour? You've learned to distinguish between the normal rhythms of city life and the subtle irregularities that betray a watchful eye. It's like trying to spot the single pixel that's off in a perfectly rendered image, knowing that pixel could be the key to your survival. Once you're outside, the game truly begins. You learn to dry clean yourself, a series of deliberate maneuvers designed to detect surveillance. You take circuitous routes, doubling back, stopping suddenly to look at a shop window, or pausing to tie a shoelace, a classic move. Remember, you're not looking for obvious tails, no trench coats and dark glasses here, though sometimes you might see a clumsy recruit who clearly watched too many B-movies. Instead, you're looking for patterns. The same car appearing 3 blocks apart. The same person always seeming to be a street ahead or behind you. The subtle exchange of glances between two people who aren't acting like strangers. It's like trying to follow a complex choreography, where every movement has a purpose, and any deviation could signal danger. And if you're anything like me, you'd probably forget your own name trying to remember the complex route you're supposed to take, let alone watching for tails. The paranoia isn't just about the professionals. It seeps into every interaction. The friendly shopkeeper, the helpful passerby, even the small child playing in the park. Could they be informants paid to report on strangers? You learn to interact minimally, to give vague answers, to avoid drawing any attention to yourself. Small talk becomes a minefield of potential slip-ups. You're constantly analyzing, evaluating, second-guessing. It's like living in a constant state of a pop quiz, where every answer, every interaction could lead to failure. You develop an almost superhuman ability to notice details. The brand of cigarette someone is smoking, the way they hold their newspaper, the specific model of a car in a parking lot. These seemingly insignificant observations are pieces of a vast, complex puzzle that you are perpetually trying to solve. You're not just walking through a city. You're navigating a living, breathing surveillance grid, trying to find the gaps, the blind spots, the moments of inattention that might grant you a fleeting sense of security. Mainstream historical fact: during the Cold War, agencies on both sides extensively used foot surveillance, where agents would physically follow targets on foot, often working in teams using prearranged hand signals or discrete radios to coordinate. This was augmented by technical surveillance, involving hidden microphones, bugs, cameras, and even specialized vans equipped with listening devices. The infamous bugging of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow in the 1950s, where the seal of the United States presented to the ambassador was found to contain a passive listening device, is a chilling testament to the lengths agencies would go. A quirky or fringe tidbit: the Stasi, East Germany's secret police, were legendary for their pervasive surveillance, often relying on a vast network of civilian informants, known as inoffizielle Mitarbeiter, IMs, or unofficial collaborators, who reported on their neighbors, friends, and even family members. Imagine a casual conversation with your next-door neighbor about the weather turning into a detailed report on your movements and associations, all because they were coerced or paid to be an informant. It's like Yelp reviews for your entire life, but with far higher stakes than a bad restaurant experience. Historians still argue whether the sheer scale and paranoia of Cold War surveillance created a genuinely secure environment for state secrets, or if it ultimately fostered a culture of distrust and suspicion that eroded social cohesion and individual freedom. Some contend it was a necessary evil to maintain national security, while others argue that it became an end in itself, consuming vast resources and sacrificing basic human rights. For you, the debate is moot. You're just trying to get from point A to point B without realizing too late that you've been followed since you left your apartment. You check your reflection in a shop window not out of vanity, but to see if you look as nonchalant as you hope. You probably wouldn't last an hour without accidentally making eye contact with someone you shouldn't, or worse, looking completely lost while trying to dry clean yourself, basically signaling to everyone that you're up to something. You've become adept at spotting the shadows, and perhaps even more importantly, at becoming one. Now, let's talk about the physical manifestations of your treacherous trade, the gadgets and tradecraft. Forget the sleek, futuristic devices cue hands to James Bond. In the Cold War, your tools were often clunky, temperamental, and absolutely vital. Their reliability, or lack thereof, added another layer of nerve-wracking uncertainty to an already impossible job. Your spy kit isn't a briefcase full of laser watches and exploding pens. More likely, it's a selection of mundane items that have been ingeniously repurposed. You might carry a hollowed-out lipstick tube containing a tiny camera, or a brush that conceals a micro-recorder. These aren't mass-produced electronics. They're often bespoke, handcrafted items, prone to jamming, running out of battery at the worst possible moment, or simply failing to work as intended when you need them most. Imagine trying to take a crucial photo of classified documents, only for your miniature camera to jam, or your tiny flash bulb to refuse to fire. It's like your Wi-Fi router deciding to die just as you're about to send an urgent email, but instead of missing a deadline, you've missed an opportunity that may never come again, and your life might be on the line. You learn the esoteric methods of tradecraft. How to use sympathetic inks that only appear under specific chemical reactions or heat. How to create burst transmissions with a clandestine radio, sending rapid, almost undetectable signals to avoid triangulation. How to pick a lock with a set of flimsy, easily breakable picks. These aren't skills for the impatient or the clumsy. One wrong move, one shaky hand, and your carefully prepared operation goes sideways. You might spend hours practicing applying a specific chemical to reveal a hidden message, only for the paper to tear or the ink to smudge, ruining the information. It's like trying to assemble flat-pack furniture without instructions, in the dark with a timer ticking down. The sheer unglamorous nature of these tools is striking. You're not using voice-activated gadgets. You're manually operating tiny, fiddly mechanisms. The technological advantage often boiled down to who could make the smallest, most concealable, and occasionally functional version of a recorder or a camera. And the batteries? Don't even get me started. These things ran on whatever was available, and you couldn't just pop to the corner store for a fresh pack of AAs. Power management was a crucial, overlooked skill. Your success often hinges not on high-tech wizardry, but on basic ingenuity and unwavering attention to detail. You learn to improvise, to adapt, to make do with what you have. If your bugging device fails, you might resort to eavesdropping through a thin wall, or simply try to charm the information out of a contact. This flexibility, born of necessity, is both your strength and your weakness. It means you're never truly helpless, but it also means you're never truly safe. Mainstream historical fact: one of the most iconic pieces of Cold War spy tech was the dead drop spike, or covert stash container. These were cylindrical, watertight containers, often designed to be pushed into the ground in a specific location, allowing for documents or small items to be retrieved later. They were simple, effective, and relied entirely on the cover of darkness and the accuracy of prearranged coordinates. No laser grids, just dirt and darkness. A quirky or fringe tidbit. The Stasi once designed a smell sample collection method, where they would secretly take fabric swatches from targets' clothing or belongings, storing them in sealed jars. In case they needed to track a person with dogs later, they would have a scent archive. Imagine a secret police force meticulously cataloging the unique aroma of every person of interest. It's like a bizarre, terrifying version of a high school yearbook, except instead of photos, it's personal odors, just waiting for a furry friend to sniff you out. Historians still argue whether the emphasis on low-tech, manually operated spy gadgets by both sides of the Cold War was a deliberate choice to avoid electronic detection, or simply a reflection of the technological limitations of the era. Some scholars suggest that the lack of complex electronics made these tools harder to trace or exploit digitally, while others contend that they were simply less reliable and less efficient. For you, fumbling with a miniature camera in a dimly lit room, praying it doesn't click too loudly or run out of film, the academic debate feels completely irrelevant. All that matters is whether this fragile piece of technology, this ingenious but ultimately imperfect tool, will work when your life and the success of your mission depends on it. You'd probably find yourself muttering, "Come on, baby, don't fail me now," more often than any actual code words. You've survived the brutal training, mastered your new identity, and become intimately familiar with the quirky, unreliable tools of your trade. Now, the moment of truth arrives. Infiltration. This is not about sneaking into a friend's backyard party. This is about crossing a heavily fortified border, slipping into a hostile environment, or gaining access to a highly secure facility. A single misstep, one tiny deviation from the plan, and you're not just caught, you're eliminated, or worse, you face a fate that makes elimination seem like a kind mercy. Imagine standing at a border checkpoint, your heart pounding a rhythm against your ribs that you're sure the guard can hear. You've rehearsed your cover story 1,000 times, every detail ingrained. You are a legitimate traveler, perhaps a businessman, an academic, or a tourist. You present your meticulously forged documents that have been designed to pass every scrutiny, but still your palms sweat. The guard's eyes rake over your face, then your passport, then back to your face. He asks a seemingly innocuous question, perhaps about your destination or your reason for travel, but you know it's a test. Your answer must be spontaneous, convincing, and perfectly consistent with the carefully constructed lie that is your new identity. It's like trying to pass a surprise pop quiz where the penalty for failing is literally your life. If you're not crossing a border overtly, perhaps you're infiltrating a facility. This means reconnaissance, meticulous planning, and a deep understanding of security systems, human patrols, and blind spots. You might spend days observing the patterns of guards, the timing of their rounds, the location of cameras, if they even exist in this analog world. You learn how to move silently through darkness, how to climb walls, how to avoid tripwires and pressure plates you can't even see. Every shadow is a potential hiding place, every gust of wind a cover for your movements. It's a dance with death, performed in absolute silence and darkness. And no, there's no helpful map on your phone to show you the security camera locations. You have to find them with your own eyes, in real time. Consider the psychological toll of this constant heightened state of awareness. You're not just trying to avoid being caught, you're trying to avoid being noticed. Every unusual sound, every unexpected light, sends a jolt of adrenaline through your system. You can't afford to panic, to freeze, or to make a rash decision. You must remain calm, methodical, and utterly ruthless in your execution. It's like being perpetually in the climax of a horror movie, but you're not a viewer, you're the main character, and there's no director to yell "cut." And when you finally gain entry, the mission itself begins, But the infiltration never truly ends. You are constantly on edge, listening, watching, ready to improvise or escape at a moment's notice. You're inside enemy territory, and every breath you take is a borrowed one. Your senses are on overdrive, constantly processing information, filtering out noise, searching for the one crucial detail that could save or condemn you. Mainstream historical fact: the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961 dramatically changed the nature of infiltration and exfiltration for agents operating in divided Germany. What was once a relatively fluid, albeit risky, crossing became a heavily fortified border with watchtowers, minefields, and armed guards, forcing intelligence agencies to develop highly sophisticated and dangerous methods, including tunneling and the use of specially modified vehicles or even hot air balloons for escape. A quirky or fringe tidbit: during the Cold War, some intelligence agencies reportedly trained agents in urban climbing techniques, not with fancy ropes and harnesses, but using drain pipes, window ledges, and other architectural features to silently ascend buildings and gain access to upper floors without detection. Imagine trying to scale a building in the dead of night, in the rain, with a bad knee, all while carrying your flimsy spy gear. It's like a very, very high-stakes version of parkour, but without the audience cheering you on, and with armed guards ready to spoil your performance. Historians still argue whether the extreme risks associated with direct infiltration missions yielded intelligence significant enough to justify the high attrition rates among agents. Some argue that the unique access gained through such operations provided invaluable insights unavailable through other means, while others contend that the human cost and frequent failures outweighed the strategic benefits. For you, clinging to a slippery drain pipe 3 stories up, trying to avoid a floodlight, the only argument that matters is between gravity and your rapidly weakening grip. You probably wished you'd spent less time perfecting your latte art and more time on core strength exercises. You've managed the impossible, you've infiltrated, you've maybe even gathered some intelligence. But the ultimate test for any Cold War spy isn't just getting in. It's what happens when you're caught. And the stark reality is, if you're operating behind enemy lines, capture often leads to only one place: the interrogation room. Forget dramatic monologues and chivalrous captors. This is about breaking you, systematically and utterly, until you surrender every secret you hold, every piece of information that makes you valuable. Imagine a room that's either too cold or too hot, starkly lit by a single, bare bulb, or plunged into an oppressive, disorienting darkness. The air is stale, heavy with the scent of fear and old cigarette smoke. There are no friendly faces, no Miranda rights, no lawyers to call. Your captors aren't interested in justice. They're interested in information, and they have all the time in the world while you have none. This isn't a legal proceeding. It's a battle of wills, and they are masters of psychological warfare. They start subtly. Sleep deprivation is a favorite. Days blur into nights as you're kept awake, perhaps with bright lights, loud noises, or constant questioning. Your mind, already frayed from the stresses of your mission, begins to unravel. You hallucinate, your thoughts become disjointed, and the line between reality and suggestion blurs. It's like trying to think clearly after pulling an all-nighter for a massive exam, except the exam never ends, and the consequences are far more severe than a bad grade. Then come the questions, endless and repetitive. They know things about you, details about your fake identity, perhaps even scraps of your real one. They'll drop hints, make false statements, and pit you against yourself, trying to expose inconsistencies in your cover story. They'll try to convince you that your own side has abandoned you, that your mission was a lie, that your efforts were pointless. They'll play good cop/bad cop, offering false kindness one moment, then resorting to chilling threats the next. They might even bring in someone you know, or someone who looks like someone you know, to try and break your resolve. The pressure mounts. They exploit your fears, your weaknesses, your deepest anxieties. If you have a family, they'll threaten them indirectly or directly. If you have a specific phobia, they'll leverage it. This isn't torture in the cinematic sense of blunt instruments. It's a slow, meticulous chipping away at your sanity, designed to make you desperate, pliable, and ultimately compliant. They might never lay a hand on you, yet leave you utterly shattered. It's like being trapped in a psychological labyrinth, where every turn leads to more despair, and the only way out is to give them what they want. Mainstream historical fact: during the Cold War, techniques such as enhanced interrogation, a euphemism for various forms of torture and psychological manipulation, were employed by intelligence agencies on both sides, though often denied publicly. These methods ranged from stress positions and sleep deprivation to sensory deprivation and exposure to extreme temperatures, all designed to break a prisoner's will and extract intelligence. A quirky or fringe tidbit: the KGB was known for using Karas operations, where they would lure an agent into a compromising situation, often involving alcohol and a honey trap, a sexual encounter, in order to blackmail them into cooperation. Imagine being interrogated, and your captors don't just have information on your mission, but also a photograph of you in a highly embarrassing, non-spy-related situation. It's like finding out your most awkward holiday party photo has been leaked to the authorities, except it's a lot less funny and a lot more damning. Historians still argue whether information extracted under duress, particularly through enhanced interrogation techniques, is reliable enough to be operationally useful, or if it primarily yields false confessions and unreliable data. Some argue that any information is better than none, while others contend that coerced confessions are often misleading and can lead to disastrous operational decisions. For you, shivering in a cold, dark room, clinging to the fragments of your memory and your dwindling resolve, the debate is abstract. All you know is the aching emptiness in your gut, the thrumming in your ears, and the terrifying realization that you might break, not from physical pain, but from the relentless assault on your very soul. You'd probably spend the entire time desperately trying to remember the safe word you never learned in training. You've faced the abyss of interrogation, and somehow, by a miracle or sheer stubbornness, you've either held strong or been deemed momentarily useless. If you're still in the game, you're now intimately familiar with the most complex and dangerous relationship of all: agent handling. This isn't about having a boss who gives you quarterly reviews. It's a deeply isolated, high-stakes partnership where trust is a fatal flaw, and the line between handler and manipulator is often blurred. Your handler is your lifeline, your sole connection to the outside world, and yet they are also your greatest potential vulnerability. Imagine your handler as a ghost, a voice on the phone, a fleeting presence in a prearranged location. They are the only person who knows your true identity, your real mission, and your deepest fears. They provide your instructions, your financial support, and your exfiltration plan. But they also control every aspect of your life, feeding you information in carefully measured doses, evaluating your performance, and constantly assessing your loyalty. It's like having a life coach who controls your entire existence, but instead of encouraging you to reach your full potential, they're urging you to risk your life for abstract geopolitical goals. And no, you can't just ghost them if you don't like their feedback. The relationship is inherently asymmetrical. You are completely dependent on them, but they maintain a professional distance, a necessary detachment that allows them to make decisions that could lead to your capture or death. You might develop a profound sense of isolation, relying solely on your handler for human connection, even as you know they are evaluating your every word, every gesture. You'll be instructed to trust no one, but you are forced to trust this one person with your life. It's a paradox that gnaws at your psyche. And then there's the constant, gnawing fear of the double agent. Is your handler truly working for your side, or have they been turned? Are the instructions they're giving you legitimate, or are they designed to lead you into a trap? The paranoia you developed during surveillance extends to your most vital relationship. You'll analyze every inflection in their voice, every pause, every unexpected deviation from protocol. You'll be looking for signs of coercion, of a subtle shift in loyalty, because if your handler is compromised, so are you, and probably everyone else you've ever been in contact with. It's like playing a game of poker where you're certain one player is cheating, but you can't figure out who or how, and your life is the pot. Your handler might ask you to perform tasks that seem illogical or highly dangerous, and you'll have to decide. Is this a calculated risk, or is it a test of your obedience? Is it a setup? This constant second-guessing, this inability to fully trust the one person you're supposed to rely on, is incredibly corrosive. You're not just carrying state secrets. You're carrying the unbearable weight of suspicion, even within your own ranks. Mainstream historical fact: the Cold War was rife with cases of double agents, with some of the most famous including Kim Philby and Aldrich Ames, who worked for decades as moles within Western intelligence agencies, providing invaluable information to the Soviet Union. The damage caused by such betrayals was immense, leading to the capture and execution of numerous genuine agents and the compromise of entire operations. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some handlers would use seemingly innocuous recognition signals to confirm their identity to agents in the field. This could be something as simple as holding a specific newspaper in a particular way, wearing a unique flower, or even repeating a prearranged, slightly odd phrase like "the weather looks fine for ducks today." Imagine waiting for your handler, desperately trying to spot the secret signal amongst a bustling crowd, hoping they're not just a random person with unusually good taste in hats. You might spend all day trying to figure out if that stranger's oddly specific compliment about your shoes was a secret code or just a very enthusiastic fashionista. Historians still argue whether the hierarchical and often impersonal nature of agent handling, designed to protect the center from compromise, ultimately contributed to the psychological breakdown of agents in the field, or if it was a necessary safeguard for operational security. Some scholars suggest that a lack of genuine human connection made agents more vulnerable, while others argue that emotional detachment was crucial for survival. For you, the agent sitting alone in a cafe, waiting for a signal, the only thing that matters is the chilling realization that the person who holds your life in their hands might be playing a different game entirely. You'd probably start developing a nervous habit of checking your watch every 5 seconds, just to confirm you're still on schedule, and perhaps still alive. You've navigated the treacherous tightrope of agent handling, the fragile thread connecting you to your mission. But what happens when that thread breaks, or when the weight of your impossible existence becomes too much to bear? You face the ultimate terrifying choice: defection. This isn't just changing jobs or moving to a new city. It's an act of profound, irreversible betrayal against everything you once stood for, and it comes with a price that haunts you forever. Imagine the moment the idea first takes root. Perhaps it's a deep-seated disillusionment with your own side, a moral compromise too great to bear, or simply an overwhelming exhaustion from the perpetual lie you've been living. The thought is a dangerous seed, blossoming into a terrifying plan. You're not just abandoning a mission, you're abandoning your identity, your country, and often your family. The decision is agonizing, fraught with ethical dilemmas and profound personal consequences. It's like deciding to completely erase your entire digital footprint and start a new life offline, but with the added complication of multiple intelligence agencies trying to find and silence you. The act of defecting is itself a perilous operation. You can't just walk into an embassy and ask for asylum. You must meticulously plan your escape, often without the knowledge of your own handler, who might be the very first person to betray you if they suspect your intentions. You gather what intelligence you can, not for your original mission, but as your ticket to a new life, you're offering to the other side in exchange for protection. This intelligence must be valuable enough to warrant the immense cost and risk of taking you on. It's a high-stakes poker game where your life is the ante, and the cards you hold are state secrets. Once you make contact with the other side, the real ordeal begins. You're not immediately welcomed with open arms and a hero's parade. Instead, you're subjected to intense scrutiny, debriefings that can last for months or even years. They need to verify every single detail of your story to ensure you're not a double agent, a plant, or simply an unreliable source. You'll recount your life, your mission, your training, your contacts over and over under lie detectors and psychological evaluations. Every memory is cross-referenced, every statement scrutinized. It's like undergoing the most intense job interview of your life, where every answer determines whether you get a new life or a one-way ticket to a dark cell. And even if you're believed, the consequences are profound. You will live under a new identity, often in a new country, forever cut off from your past. Your family, if you had one, will likely face severe repercussions in your home country. You'll be a pariah, a traitor to the people you once served. And despite the protection you might receive, you'll always be looking over your shoulder, haunted by the fear of retribution from the country you betrayed. There's no witness protection program that can erase the ghosts of your past. Mainstream historical fact: high-profile defections were major intelligence coups during the Cold War. For example, Oleg Gordievsky, a KGB colonel who secretly worked for MI6, defected in 1985 and provided invaluable insights into Soviet operations, but lived the rest of his life under protection, knowing he was a prime target for assassination. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some defectors reportedly struggled immensely with adapting to the mundane aspects of their new, free lives, finding the absence of constant surveillance and high-stakes operations disorienting. Imagine moving from a world where every phone call is monitored to one where you can order a pizza without suspicion, and finding the freedom itself to be a kind of prison. It's like someone who has spent their entire life in a high-speed chase suddenly having to navigate rush-hour traffic. You'd probably find yourself accidentally trying to dry clean yourself on the way to the grocery store. Historians still argue whether the intelligence gained from high-profile defectors was worth the immense security risks, logistical challenges, and the ethical dilemmas associated with offering asylum to traitors. Some scholars contend that the insights provided were invaluable for understanding enemy capabilities and intentions, while others point to the significant resources required for defector management and the potential for disinformation. For you, living out your days in a quiet, anonymous suburb, the debate is academic. All you know is the gnawing silence, the ache of what you left behind, and the chilling certainty that, even in this new life, you will never truly be free. You'd probably find yourself endlessly organizing your pantry, just to have some semblance of control in a life where everything else spiraled out of it. You've navigated the treacherous labyrinth of betrayal and perhaps even found a fragile, new existence. But whether you're still active in the field or living in the gilded cage of defection, there's one enemy you can never truly escape: paranoia. This isn't just a fleeting suspicion. It's a constant, suffocating companion, the mind's unseen foe, slowly, relentlessly chipping away at your sanity until you can no longer distinguish between genuine threats and the terrifying whispers of your own fractured mind. Imagine waking up not knowing if the shadows in your room are real or imagined. Every creak of the floorboards outside your apartment, every distant siren, every unfamiliar face in a crowd, they are all amplified, scrutinized, and interpreted as potential threats. You find yourself constantly checking locks, scanning reflections, and listening intently to background noise. It's like living in a permanent state of fight or flight, your adrenaline always on standby, ready to surge at the slightest provocation. This sustained hypervigilance is utterly exhausting. The constant deception required for your cover identity, The necessity of lying to everyone you meet slowly erodes your ability to trust anyone, including yourself. You begin to question your own memories, your own perceptions. Was that truly a prearranged signal from your contact? Or was it just a random gesture? Did you actually see that surveillance van? Or did your mind create it out of the fear of being watched? You might find yourself arguing with imaginary interrogators, rehearsing cover stories even when alone, or meticulously checking your apartment for bugs you know aren't there. It's like living inside a hall of mirrors where every reflection seems to be hiding something sinister. Isolation fuels the paranoia. As a deep cover agent, you are often forbidden from forming genuine connections. Friendships are superficial, relationships are calculated risks, and true intimacy is impossible because you can never fully reveal yourself. This profound loneliness, coupled with the constant threat, creates a fertile ground for your mind to turn against itself. You might start to believe that even your closest contacts are compromised, that your own side is testing you, or that everyone around you is part of an elaborate trap. It's like being the only player in a vast, deadly game of hide and seek, and every other player is an enemy, even the ones you thought were on your team. The sheer mental fatigue is overwhelming. You can't relax, not truly. Sleep, when it comes, is often restless, haunted by nightmares of capture or exposure. The constant pressure to perform, to remember intricate details, to maintain your facade, grinds you down. You might develop nervous tics, insomnia, or even start to hear phantom noises. Your personality, once perhaps vibrant and trusting, becomes guarded, cynical, and detached. This isn't a psychological thriller you can turn off. It's your lived reality every single moment. Mainstream historical fact. The psychological toll of Cold War espionage was immense, with many agents suffering from burnout, severe depression, paranoia, and post-traumatic stress disorder, even if they were never physically harmed. The constant stress, isolation, and deception often led to profound mental health challenges that followed them long after their operational careers ended. A quirky or fringe tidbit. Some agents reportedly developed highly specific, almost ritualistic behaviors to cope with their paranoia, such as always counting the exact number of steps from their door to a specific landmark, or meticulously arranging their belongings in a certain way before leaving their safe house. It's like having extreme OCD, but instead of just being a personal quirk, it's a desperate attempt to exert control over a world that is utterly out of control. You might even find yourself developing a strange fondness for perfectly symmetrical patterns, just to find some order in the chaos. Historians still argue whether the psychological damage sustained by agents was an acceptable cost of doing business in the intelligence world, or if it represented a fundamental failure of agencies to adequately support their personnel. Some scholars contend that the mental fortitude of agents was a critical asset, while others argue that the long-term human cost was unconscionable. For you, the agent trapped in a web of your own making, the debate is moot. All you know is the cold sweat on your brow, the tremor in your hand, and the chilling realization that the greatest enemy isn't outside, but living inside your own mind. You'd probably find yourself talking to yourself more than you talk to anyone else, just to ensure that at least one person in your life is telling you the truth. You're battling the insidious grip of paranoia, your mind a battlefield. But the threats aren't just psychological or grand geopolitical maneuvers. You'd quickly discover that the most dangerous moments often arise from the mundane, the overlooked, the seemingly insignificant details of everyday life. These small mistakes, these logistical blunders, are as deadly as any counterintelligence operation and far more likely to get you caught than a high-tech laser grid. Imagine you're on a crucial mission, perhaps transporting sensitive documents across a border. You've meticulously planned your route, your cover story is solid, but you forgot to check the expiration date on your driving license. Or perhaps you didn't quite get enough local currency for a sudden unforeseen toll booth. These aren't thrilling spy movie dilemmas. They're the tedious, bureaucratic nightmares that could get you stopped, questioned, and ultimately exposed. It's like forgetting your passport at the airport right before a crucial international flight. Except instead of missing your vacation, you might miss your life. Consider the simple act of travel. You're constantly moving, crossing borders, catching trains, navigating crowded airports, or their 1960s equivalent. Each leg of the journey is a potential point of failure. A missed connection, a suspicious-looking piece of luggage, a lost train ticket, any of these mundane inconveniences could lead to unwanted attention. You can't just pull up Google Maps to find an alternate route. You rely on paper maps, a good sense of direction, and the ability to improvise on the fly. And if you're anything like me, you'd probably get lost within 5 minutes, even with GPS, let alone in a foreign city without it. Then there's the paperwork. Oh, the paperwork. Forged documents, visas, travel permits. All of them must be perfect, consistent, and instantly believable. A smudged stamp, a slightly off font, or a discrepancy in your fabricated employment history can trigger suspicion. You can't just fix a typo with a quick edit. You're dealing with physical documents that must stand up to meticulous scrutiny. The sheer stress of constantly handling, maintaining, and presenting these fragile pieces of paper would be enough to give anyone chronic migraines. It's like having to perfectly replicate 100 government forms by hand, knowing that a single ink blot could land you in jail. Even seemingly innocent personal habits can be fatal. Do you have a distinctive cough? Do you always order your coffee a certain way? Do you have a favorite brand of cigarette that isn't commonly available in your current operational area? These small, personal quirks, which you've suppressed during your identity training, can inadvertently tie you back to your true self or to a previous cover, giving counterintelligence the thread they need to unravel your entire operation. It's like having a unique fingerprint on every item you touch, but that fingerprint is your own quirky human habit. Mainstream historical fact: many agents were compromised not by sophisticated counter-espionage techniques, but by simple, mundane errors. For instance, a famous Soviet intelligence officer, Colonel Rudolf Abel, real name William Fisher, was caught in 1957 after his handler, Reino Heihanen, a fellow agent, effectively defected and betrayed him, partly due to his own dissatisfaction and, reportedly, his heavy drinking, which led to carelessness. A quirky or fringe tidbit. During the Cold War, agents were sometimes instructed to carry seemingly random, specific objects to verify their identity or to act as a recognition signal, such as a particular type of antique matchbox or a unique button on their coat. Imagine having to remember not only your cover story, but also to have the exact right, utterly obscure prop in your pocket at all times. It's like realizing you've forgotten your lucky socks before a big presentation. But if you don't have them, you might be unmasked as a spy. Historians still argue whether the focus on elaborate, high-level intelligence gathering sometimes overshadowed the critical importance of mundane operational security and logistical planning. Some scholars contend that agencies place too much emphasis on recruitment and grand strategy, while underestimating the vulnerability of agents to simple, everyday mistakes. For you, frantically searching for the correct bus fare or realizing your forged train ticket is subtly different from the local ones. The debate is irrelevant. All that matters is the tightening knot in your stomach, the sudden realization that your meticulously planned mission is teetering on the brink, not because of a grand spy versus spy showdown, but because you forgot to bring enough change. You'd probably find yourself double-checking your pockets for your keys about 20 times a day, just in case. You're constantly grappling with the mundane, the tiny cracks in the facade of your espionage life. But sometimes, those cracks widen into chasms, and an operational blunder, a seemingly minor slip-up, snowballs into catastrophic failure. This isn't about being caught in a thrilling chase scene. It's about the butterfly effect in espionage, where one tiny error can lead to a domino effect of disaster, often with lethal outcomes. Imagine you've just completed a sensitive exchange, perhaps a dead drop. You're feeling a rush of relief, your guard dropping slightly for just a second. You glance back, just to be sure, and accidentally make eye contact with someone you shouldn't have, or linger a moment too long in a spot. That fleeting moment of breaking your cover, that tiny slip in tradecraft, might not seem like much at the time, but it's enough. A surveillance team, hitherto invisible, logs your face, your route, your time. Your dry cleaning efforts are retrospectively analyzed, and your previous movements now make sense in the context of their new lead. It's like accidentally leaving your phone unlocked with all your private messages exposed. But the friend who finds it is actually a hostile intelligence agency. Or consider a communications error. You're trying to send a crucial message using a one-time pad. Perhaps in your haste or due to stress-induced fatigue, you misread a number, or you accidentally reuse a portion of a previously used key. A single digit out of place, and your meticulously encrypted message becomes decipherable, revealing your identity, your mission, and potentially your entire network. This isn't a simple typo you can correct. It's a fundamental breach of security, opening the door for counterintelligence to walk right in. It's like sending a top-secret email to the wrong address, except the undo send button doesn't exist, and the recipient is actively trying to destroy you. Even seemingly innocent social interactions can be traps. You're at a local pub trying to blend in, and someone strikes up a conversation. You're supposed to be vague, charming, and forgettable, but you're tired, perhaps lonely, and you inadvertently mention a detail about your fabricated past that contradicts a previous statement, or you use a turn of phrase that's too distinctly from your actual background. It's not a grand confession. It's a subtle inconsistency that raises a red flag for a trained ear. This small verbal misstep, this human desire for genuine connection, becomes the thread that unravels your carefully constructed web of lies. It's like trying to maintain a perfectly consistent persona in an online role-playing game, but you accidentally use your real-life pet's name, and suddenly everyone knows who you are. These operational blunders highlight the unforgiving nature of the Cold War. There were no second chances, no do-overs. The margin for error was non-existent. The pressure to be perfect, to never slip, to always be one step ahead, was immense and ultimately unsustainable for most. Even the most seasoned agents made mistakes because they were still human, susceptible to fatigue, stress, and the inherent unpredictability of real-world operations. Mainstream historical fact: the farewell dossier, provided by Vladimir Vetrov, a high-ranking KGB officer who spied for France, detailed a vast Soviet effort to steal Western technology. His initial motivation was disillusionment and alcoholism, leading to carelessness that almost exposed him, but he eventually became a major source. This shows how personal blunders can be both a path to capture or, surprisingly, to becoming a vital asset due to a willingness to betray. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some agents were caught not because of sophisticated surveillance, but because of their dietary preferences. For instance, an agent who was supposed to be a humble East German factory worker might be seen regularly buying expensive Western coffee or specific luxury foods not available on the ration system, raising suspicion among observant neighbors or informants. It's like a spy being exposed because they couldn't give up their daily avocado toast fix, even when living under deep cover. Historians still argue whether the focus on individual human error in intelligence failures sometimes overshadowed systemic issues or the inherent unpredictability of complex operations. Some scholars contend that agencies were too quick to blame individual agents for operational blunders, rather than examining flawed planning or insufficient support. For you, the agent who just made that fatal misstep, the academic debate is irrelevant. All that matters is the chilling realization that the game is up, not because of a grand master plan, but because you were tired or lonely or simply devastatingly human. You'd probably spend your last moments wishing you'd just stayed home and watched reality TV. You've somehow survived the blunders, the betrayals, and the relentless psychological assault. Let's imagine for a moment that you made it out. You're done with the missions, the aliases, the constant fear. You've been exfiltrated. Or perhaps you've even defected and been given a new life. But here's the grim truth about the Cold War spy's existence. There's no true retirement. Your past never truly lets go. It haunts you, a silent, ever-present shadow. Imagine your new life. You're given a new identity, a new backstory, perhaps even a modest pension. You might be relocated to a quiet suburb in a different country, far from the battlegrounds you once knew. You try to blend in, to become the person your new papers say you are. A retired accountant, a quiet librarian, a harmless gardener. You attend local events, make small talk with neighbors, perhaps even try your hand at a hobby. But beneath the surface, the machine of your former life still grinds. It's like trying to fully delete your online presence, but realizing that the internet never truly forgets, and there are always cached versions of your past lurking somewhere. The paranoia, deeply ingrained from years of living under surveillance, doesn't simply vanish. Every stranger who looks at you too long, every unexpected phone call, every unmarked car driving slowly down your street sends a jolt of ice through your veins. You're conditioned to see threats, to expect betrayal, and that conditioning is almost impossible to unlearn. You might find yourself checking for bugs in your new, quiet home, or compulsively dry cleaning yourself on a simple trip to the grocery store. It's like living with an invisible alarm system constantly blaring in your head, even when there's no real danger. Forming genuine relationships is incredibly difficult, if not impossible. How do you explain your past? How do you trust someone enough to let them truly see you, when your true self is a carefully guarded secret, riddled with lies and trauma? The isolation you experienced in the field follows you into retirement. You might find yourself drifting from place to place, unable to put down roots, or retreating into a solitary existence, preferring the company of your own ghosts to the risk of human connection. It's like being an actor who can't shake off their most intense role, perpetually performing for an unseen audience. And then there's the constant threat of retribution. If you defected, your former country views you as a traitor and may send assassination squads years, even decades, later. If you simply retired, you still possess valuable knowledge that your former agency might fear falling into the wrong hands, or that an enemy agency might try to extract. Your name might remain on a target list, a cold case file waiting to be reopened. There's no true freedom, no true safety. You are always implicitly looking over your shoulder. It's like having a perpetual target painted on your back, visible only to those who hunt you. Mainstream historical fact: the shadows of the Cold War extended long after the conflict officially ended. Defected agents and even retired intelligence officers often lived under assumed names and security details for the rest of their lives, fearing assassination attempts or kidnappings by their former adversaries. The poisoning of Sergei Skripal in 2018, a former Russian GRU officer who spied for the UK, is a modern example of this lingering threat. A quirky or fringe tidbit: some former agents reportedly developed hobbies that allowed them to continue exercising their highly specialized skills in a non-dangerous way, such as competitive orienteering for navigation, intricate model building for precision and patience, or even becoming master chess players for strategic thinking. Imagine a retired spy spending their golden years meticulously organizing their stamp collection, not for fun, but because the discipline of categorization still haunts them. You'd probably find yourself accidentally trying to pick the lock on your own mailbox, just for old time's sake. Historians still argue whether the long-term psychological and physical burdens on former agents truly reflect the price of national security or if they highlight the profound human cost of constant deception and high-stakes operations. Some scholars argue that their sacrifices were necessary, while others contend that the lasting trauma was an unacceptable consequence. For you, the former spy watching a quiet sunset from your suburban window, the debate is moot. All you know is the phantom weight of a hidden pistol, the flicker of a distant memory that pulls you back to the shadows, and the chilling certainty that, even in peace, you will always be at war with your past. You'd probably find yourself compulsively checking the weather forecast for no reason, just to feel like you're still gathering intelligence. We've journeyed through the desolate landscape of Cold War espionage, from the soul-crushing training and the existential dread of becoming someone else, to the perilous dance of covert communication, the suffocating cloak of surveillance, and the chilling finality of interrogation. We've seen how mundane errors can unravel elaborate plans, and how the specter of defection or the phantom grip of paranoia can destroy a human being from the inside out. Now, let's bring it all back to the initial daunting premise. Why you, dear listener, wouldn't last a single day as a spy in the Cold War. Remember the introduction, where I hinted at the sheer, unglamorous brutality? That wasn't just a cheeky reality check. It was an understatement. You, with your reliance on instant gratification and readily available information, would be utterly lost in a world where data was painstakingly gathered, manually encrypted, and communicated through a series of agonizingly slow and dangerous steps. Your smartphone, your digital assistant, your entire internet-connected life? Utterly useless, worse than useless, a liability that would instantly mark you as an outsider, a relic of a future that hasn't arrived. You'd probably try to Google how to remove tracking device from shoe and get caught within minutes. Your comfort with personal expression, your desire for connection, would be your undoing. In a world where anonymity is paramount and trust is a death sentence, your natural inclination to share, to emote, to be yourself would be a beacon to counterintelligence. Remember how we talked about your quirks, your habits? They are betrayals waiting to happen. That nervous habit of checking your phone, that particular brand of coffee you love, your unique laugh, all would be cataloged, analyzed, and used to expose you. You'd probably spend half your day trying to remember your fake accent and the other half trying not to accidentally hum your favorite pop song. The sheer, grinding, relentless mental and physical toll would break you long before you even got close to a mission-complete screen. The constant sleep deprivation, the lack of proper nutrition, the perpetual state of hypervigilance, the profound isolation. It's not just mentally draining, it's physically debilitating. Your body and mind would simply give out. You're used to ordering takeout when you're tired, not operating on 3 hours of fractured sleep for weeks on end while under constant threat. You'd be calling in sick with spy flu within hours. And let's not forget the mundane dangers. You, who might struggle to navigate a new city without GPS, would be expected to memorize complex routes, recognize subtle surveillance cues, and handle delicate, unreliable gadgets under extreme pressure. Forget your fear of public speaking. Try giving a perfect, consistent cover story to a suspicious border guard while your heart is trying to escape your chest. You'd probably accidentally hand over your library card instead of your forged passport. The Cold War spy life wasn't a thrilling adventure. It was a grueling test of endurance, a profound act of self-annihilation, and a constant dance with death. The heroes weren't the ones with the gadgets and the charm, but the ones who survived, often at immense personal cost. The true nature of this game was quiet suffering, profound loneliness, and the chilling realization that every decision, no matter how small, could lead to your end. You are simply not built for that level of sustained, soul-crushing pressure. And honestly, who could blame you? Mainstream historical fact: the average operational lifespan for a deep cover agent during the height of the Cold War was surprisingly short, often measured in months rather than years, largely due to the immense pressures, high risk of compromise, and psychological toll leading to burnout, capture, or defection. It was a grinder, and very few came out whole. A quirky or fringe tidbit: many intelligence agencies had a strict no-pets policy for agents in the field, not just for operational security, but because the emotional attachment to an animal could be exploited by enemy intelligence or simply become an unmanageable liability. Imagine being a spy and having to choose between your mission and your furry companion. You'd probably try to smuggle your emotional support hamster across the border and get caught at customs. Historians still argue whether the romanticized image of the Cold War spy, perpetuated by popular culture, fundamentally misrepresents the grim realities of espionage, or if it merely serves to inspire interest in a complex historical period. Some scholars contend that the glamorization trivializes the immense sacrifices and suffering of real agents, while others argue that it's a necessary simplification to engage a broader audience. For you, the listener, now hopefully a little more aware of the brutal truth, the debate is clear. You wouldn't last a day. You'd be back home by dinner time, curled up with your comfort food, grateful for your boring, predictable, utterly unspy-like life. And honestly, that sounds pretty good right about now, doesn't it?